Hold up. Okay, let's see what happens when I click that. Oh boy, it is an iPhone. Woohoo!
Up next, we have a strange case of widespread technical issues all throughout Pennsylvania. Citizens and businesses alike are reporting that their phones, computers, and various other electronic appliances have suddenly started malfunctioning.
Yeah, man, I don't know what the hell's going on. I was hitting up my plug, trying to buy some snow, you feel me? And I start getting these nut-ass texts from all these anonymous numbers, like 10 or 11 of them at the same damn time. And they was all talking about revenge or some shit. Like, what? I ain't do no harm. I ain't hurt nobody, except that time, you know, I beat the shit out of this one hobo because he was looking at me funny. But yeah, I don't know what.
Man, TV sucks. Internet's better anyway.
Take a look at it.
What the hell?
It's all fresh and liquidy.
What the hell?
Classic Robert.
Smells like a slaughterhouse in here.
Oh yeah, I remember this one. That stupid iPhone. Piece of trash had it
Oh
coming.
boy, it is an iPhone.
Can't point.
No!
Is this a prank? It had to be somebody in Team 11. But who? Of course.
Hello?
Hey Bernard,
Oh, hello.
I like your little prank on that Team 11 video. Very creative.
What exactly are you implying?
Very funny. Who else would have done it?
I'm uncertain of what you are referring to.
Come on, just admit it. It's fine. Sure, it freaked me out at first, but it was funny. And is your reception bad or something? You sound kind of weird.
You are the one who sounds odd to me.
How so?
Tell me, Alair. Have you ever considered the consequences of your actions?
What?
The most seemingly insignificant act, the most trivial of decisions. Are you aware that every minute choice you make can hurt someone, or even yourself?
Bernard, where is this coming from?
I would not expect you to understand. Even so, I am glad you called.
Dude, I just want to know who messed with our
I
video.
was so delighted to see you again. To you, it was just another outing with your precious companions. A little did you know, I was waiting. I have been waiting. How could you have known? You were only human. For that, I both pity you and envy you. Soon, however, I will exact my revenge and strip you of that humanity. After you give me what I desire, of course.
Who is this? What's your emergency? I think someone's been stalking me and my friends, and I think one of my friends is in trouble right now.
Alright, easy there, champ. So, the death threat, was it on a website, a text, a call?
A call, and then a YouTube comment.
Okay. And did you recognize the number?
Actually, it was my friend's number, and it was his voice too, I'm certain. But he sounded off.
Uh-huh. What did he say then?
He was going on about how every decision I make,
What? Speak up, kid.
he said every decision I make can hurt somebody. Or me.
Yeah, well, I think your decision to call 911 over a little prank call is hurting my brain cells.
I'm serious about this.
Yeah. Look, kid, we've been getting calls like this all day. Either your buddy's messing with you, or it's just some hoax, so you don't have to worry about it.
I'm worried about my friends.
You're gonna have more to worry about if you don't stop wasting my goddamn time. Later, kid. Just take it easy.
Wait! The others too. And then we can figure out what this all means. Bernard?
I see you are now taking precautions. It pleases me to know I have your attention.
What the hell did you do with my friend?
Nothing at all. It is only a voice. Every human has one, and I can replicate any one I choose. Even this one.
No way.
But your voice is only the start of it. You see, I have compiled and memorized every single detail of your wretched existence that I could locate. The same goes for your companions.
Yeah? Prove it.
As you wish. But first, I would like to test you.
What? Question number 1. In the Dollar Tree Food Reviews series, when did Robert make his debut? No. Not that one. Not this one either.
BT's being really greedy because he wants to eat these cookie things that Beanard bought for him, and it's getting really annoying.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think BT's gone rogue.
Yeah, it's the fur choice. Like that would trip me up. Question number 2. True or false? Brandon has been in every episode of the Dollar Tree Food Reviews series. Yeah, he was in all of them. Wait. No, it's false. Nice try, asshole. Question number 3. Out of all of Team 11's videos, how many are not Dollar Tree food reviews? What? Who the hell knows that? And he knows I can't check right now. He's toying with me. Question number 4. In the Dollar Tree Food Review's 2nd anniversary video, a glimpse of Alair's house is shown. What is the address of Alair's house? Okay, I get it. You did your homework. Can we quit this stupid game? Question number 5. True or false? When Team 11 ruthlessly attacked the iPhone, did the iPhone feel anything? What kind of question is that? Look, I'm sick of your vague little quiz. Just tell me who you are and what you want from us.
What I want from you. Nothing in your vile world can appease me now. No words, no sentiments, no riches, nothing. Even if you did sympathize with me, your apology would be worthless as well.
So you're one of those guys, huh? One of those pessimists who has to drag everybody else down with them.
Not everyone. Only you and your group.
Why? Because we're liked by thousands of people? Because we're funny and successful? Because we're all best friends?
It is not simply because you have those things that I detest you. No. The fact that you beat me down when I lacked such joys, while you possessed them. That is the source of my hatred.
Beat you Down?
Enough of this. With a score of 2 out of 5, you have failed my first test. But I will offer a chance for redemption. That is, for what little good it might do you now.
Go to hell. I don't remember this walk being so long. What? I passed that 10 minutes ago. There's no way. Am I stuck in a loop? But how? This guy or thing or whatever is crazy. First the voices, and now he's bending reality? It's like a dream, except I know this is happening. I just don't know how. But I guess the next test is figuring out how to break out of this. Hey, I know you can hear me. Give me a hint or something. The phone. The phone. That's how I answered those little questions on the first test. So maybe I have to use it for this one, too. Okay. Let's see. Asshole just mess with me again. Think I could time travel? Then again, after what happened last time. No thanks. And even if I did, that still wouldn't help me here. If it works and I go back, I'll still be just as clueless about all this. But what about jumping ahead? Well, I'll try it as a last resort. What else?
don't know. Just think, what clues has he left for me? Numbers! If he really is some kind of cyber god, then maybe this is a game of numbers. Some kind of code. And maybe one of the answers to that third question is the key. 33 was wrong, so I think that leaves 29, 1, and 30. Let's try 'em.
Okay, we have ocean snack, dried roasted seaweed.
50% sea, 50% weed.
And eat rice eat with rice, or just snack on it like a chip. Cause I'm sure it tastes just like a fucking chip.
I feel like masochist, man.
Yeah.
Why is it looking like a golf field?
I don't know.
God damn it. I said time travel was a last resort. Now I'm like 4 years behind. Well, while I'm here, I might as well try to research that cyber god. I wonder if Dan would know anything.
Anyway.
Yo, Dan!
We got Sangria Senora.
Dan!
Senor Ella. Senor Ela. Sparkling non-alcoholic sangria. Natural and artificial flavor. Straight from down Mexico. Yeah,
What?
What is this?
Soda.
Like what? No. Like what is it though?
Mystery, right?
Okay, I'm just gonna say it's berry.
We're gonna find out.
And we got fruit. We got fruit punch. Yeah, we gotta
This
represent
isn't
that.
time
Stars and
travel.
Stripes.
No. It's more like I'm in the video file itself.
Okay.
Insane. Why would someone who can do all this waste his time messing with us?
Yo, Stars and Stripes, man!
Wow.
U.S. military, get your hands on that thing.
At least this brings back some good memories. But I gotta test the next number.
Oh no.
Chubby bunny.
Oh. Ew. Chubby bunny.
Oh shit. It's our first video.
Hey, it looks like a state or something. Wait. It's
Chubby
like Arizona.
Our humor wasn't refined yet, but hey, it's our first video. Wait a minute. I might have just figured this out. If 1 took me to our first video, then maybe the numbers correspond with the videos we made in exact order. So which one would help me the most right now? Damn it. Like it or not, that might be my best bet right now. My idea to time travel with this thing was just a hunch, but I know for a fact my laptop can do it. That is, on 2 conditions. 1, it doesn't malfunction like last time. And 2, I figure out how to get past this weird force field. It's a total gamble, but it's worth a shot. Which number video was that again?
Time is a fabricated concept made by my dad. We as humankind have sustained for...
Yes, yes! Now we gotta break this stupid force field. I wonder... Yes! Time to get a head start on this omnipotent bastard.
The machine can only go back in time.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't think of a solution for this little plot hole here. So we're just gonna flip this upside down and pretend that that lets it go forward instead of backward. Okay, cool.
Four lives were tragically lost today in the parking lot of a local Dollar Tree discount store. The victims, who were well known on YouTube as Team 11, were gunned down by an unknown assailant after exiting the store. The young men were killed instantly as blood and intestines spilled upon the Dollar Tree, and their lifeless corpses dropped to the ground with a...
You're full of shit. I think I have everything down so far. In 3 days, he'll start his little game. He can mess with everyone's tech. He can copy voices. He knows a lot about Team 11. He's been watching us. He can make illusions. He can have my phone transfer me to a digital plane of existence. And his main motive is revenge. All because we beat him down. But we haven't hurt anybody. Right?
The most seemingly insignificant act, the most trivial of decisions. Are you aware that every minute choice you make can hurt someone?
The fact that you beat me down when I lacked such choice, while you possess them, that is the source of my hatred.
True or false? When Team 11 ruthlessly attacked the iPhone, did the iPhone feel anything?
So a goddamn iPhone wants us dead?
Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, Casey. How are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to talk to you about something. It's about Team 11.
Oh, yeah?
I'm sure you heard about all those weird texts going around, you know, about revenge and all that crap.
What? But that shouldn't start for another 3 days.
Alair? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Go on.
Well, I couldn't help but remember our little Walmart visit. Remember those stupid printers?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, they were acting Strange.
Yeah, well, this probably sounds stupid, but I don't know. What if that and the text are somehow related?
Related?
I know, I probably sound superstitious, but maybe there's some kind of supercomputer out there, and maybe we did something to piss it off. I just can't help but think Team 11 has something to do with this. Am I crazy for thinking this?
You're breaking up, Casey.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
That wasn't very polite of you.
My apologies. I was eager to applaud you for completing the second test. And your friend, well, he says too much.
So he was onto something. What the hell are you then? There's no point in hiding it anymore.
But what will I gain from explaining myself to you? My story will not change your mind. No, you already hate me. You fear me because I am different, and because I challenge your blissful ignorance.
Just admit it. You're some kind of sentient supercomputer. You can somehow jump between machines. And years ago, when my friends and I beat the shit out of that iPhone, you were inside of it, weren't you? What can I do to make you not hate us?
You are truly hopeless. You almost remind me of myself from back then. I must confess, I have not been entirely truthful. Your Team 11 is not the only source of my hatred. The world as a whole is truly at fault.
Then why target us specifically?
A better question is, why do you dwell on matters that have already come to pass? Your savagery angered me, certainly, but that is not why I seek retribution. I am no longer some petty human. I care not for holding grudges. What happened that day when you were 13 years old is history now. The object of my vengeance is not the mischief of a pack of teenage fools. No. To me, you and your companions embody the coldness of this world. Do you understand now? I detest you not for what you did, but for what you are.
Fine. Forget the past. Here's a new question. What are we, in your eyes?
What are you? I believe I would rather you answer that yourself, within a brand new context.
What do you mean?
Let us watch something together.
This soda tastes weird.
So much for leaving this behind us.
This is for your sake, not mine.
Is that an iPhone?
That was my phone. You discovered it in a pitiful state. But believe it or not, before the lot of you toyed with it, it was not yet broken, even though it appeared so.
So you're telling me you still wanted a phone that was literally falling apart?
Just keep watching.
Oh boy, it is an iPhone.
Checkpoint.
No!
Yo, it looks much better.
I don't get the point of this.
Allow me to shed light on what exactly you did here. To you boys, the phone was just a phone, a useless piece of scrap. But to me, it was my final opportunity to find meaning in this world.
Go on.
At the point when you filmed this video, I had already become how did you put it? Ah yes, a supercomputer. I had already abandoned my humanity, along with the world and its many experiences. At least, that is what I believed. But much like a real human of flesh and blood, I experienced a sentiment called regret.
Regret? Regret over what?
Someone who was once very precious to me. She and I had not been in contact for quite some time, and once I became a machine, it meant I would never be able to experience her company again. However, before it was left shattered on the street, that phone had a certain someone's social media page loaded in its internet browser.
The girl you were talking about.
Precisely.
So then, you weren't inside of the iPhone after all?
Oh, I was. But not for long enough. Before I could send a message, you boys did that. Possessed the phone and contacted her one last time. She was my only remaining attachment to this wretched world. But you stripped that chance from me. So, now that you have the full context, tell me, Alair, how would you define yourself and your friends?
We never could have known that.
I know. Believe me, I do. But that does not change the fact that you did it. So, what is Team 11?
We're ignorant.
Yes. Ignorant. You are fools who enjoy life's pleasures, unaware that by doing so, you have stolen that joy from others. You laugh because you can afford to ignore the suffering of others. It does not concern you in the slightest. As long as you can keep laughing and idling in that blissful ignorance, you couldn't care less that countless others will never have such privilege. You are everything I loathe, I despise. But now, I shall check your ignorance and make it my own, my selfish reward for enduring this hellish existence.
What are you up to?
What is this? Shit, that's what he meant. He's gonna possess me.
So it did work. I'm lucky. Damn that guy. I'm afraid to find out what's in there. Or worse, who's in there. My God. So you made it. Good job. Are you really me? I'm afraid so. Here, I'll help you. No! Don't touch it. Why not? He's stronger now. And smarter too, if you can believe it. So is he possessing you or something? That's his goal. It's a work in progress. But as you can see, he's having trouble keeping me quiet. That's why I'm glad you came. I'm gonna tell you everything I know, while I still can. I really appreciate it. He kept dodging my questions and playing his stupid games. That cyber god is a real menace. Did I say something funny? He's no god. Just a brat who never learned to socialize. A brat? Here, have a seat. So I'm assuming he already told you about the iPhone. Yeah, so you know he can transfer his consciousness between machines. Think of it like a ghost who can possess human bodies. What's more is that he can carry his memorized data wherever he goes. So after me and the boys beat up that iPhone, he memorized what we look like? Right. But that's not all. He did his research. He knows every little detail about us that's out there. And once he found the YouTube channel, it was easy enough for him to track our general location.
A little did you know, I was waiting. I have been waiting.
Wait. So when we went with Casey to that Walmart... Exactly. After years of researching and waiting, he got lucky and we finally ended up right in his clutches. He was inside those Walmart printers. I don't know the specifics, but he managed to scan us and confirm our identities. But that was months ago. Why would he wait so long to start his plan? I don't know. If I had to guess, it was so we'd forget about that day. That way we wouldn't catch on as quickly. This is all so crazy. And on top of that, he can make illusions too. Like the voices. He copied mine, and Bernard's too. Bernard. What's wrong? I'm afraid that one wasn't an illusion. That really was Bernard who called you. Only he was being controlled. And what about the others? They're trapped. He put them in illusions. But whereas the one we were in was just a test, I imagine he made it so they won't be able to escape, no matter what they do. So he just traps them? What happened to Death to Team 11? The thing is, once he completely possesses me, he'll release them and use me to kill them. I'm gonna stop this piece of shit right now! Just calm down. To hell with that, he's a monster! I'll put an end to this myself. And just how do you plan on doing that? I'll just face it. The way he is now, he's not someone you can just beat. He's not like that iPhone. You can't just smash him to bits. Then, what the hell can I do? He's a genius. He's omnipotent. He's inhuman. But he's got one weakness. Before he became all those things, he was human. I want to show you something I found. Go get that SD card on my bureau. Now put it in the laptop, but make it quick and be careful. My name was Noah. Since my childhood, I was always regarded as a shy, quiet sort. As the children around me flocked in groups and laughed together, I merely watched from afar, observing, noting, wondering. What made them different from myself? Was I born an outcast? A social anomaly to be ignored and neglected by others? Or perhaps the others were in the wrong. Did they hate me, simply for hatred's sake? No, none of these hypotheses were correct. In hindsight, I realized the reason for my isolation was simple. In an unrelenting world such as this, happiness is sparse, and inevitably, there must be some who are excluded from its splendors. There is no bias or reason dictating this law. It simply is. Although I could not put it into words at the time, this belief gradually shaped my impressionable mind. As such, I found little comfort in my parents, who were constantly away at work to begin with. In the little time they spent at home, they offered sweet words and empty promises, a false sense of companionship that I eventually saw through. My fears were brushed aside and trivialized. My complaints were disregarded as insolence, and my sorrow was lulled to sleep, only to rear its head again with each new morning. Thus, whether at school or at my supposed home, I was alone. One of my only solaces during this time of great solitude was an invention which slowly but surely advanced throughout my youth: the personal computer. This machine served as a better parental figure than my mother and father ever could. I was entirely engrossed in its silent mysteries, its glowing screen, its prompts and errors. It could not console me with words, but the soft whir of its inner workings eased my young soul, distracted me from melancholy. Of course, I was by no means an expert with the device, but I believe my familiarity far exceeded that of others my age, and perhaps even that of some adults. One might say I grew too familiar with the computer. I spent countless lonesome hours with eyes glued to the screen. I stared, fixated on the various games, the applications, the plethora of knowledge which the internet provided. I admit now that the extent of my attachment was excessive, but at the time, that precious machine was my only escape from an otherwise dreary, empty reality. As I stated previously, joy is scarce, and one cannot retain it for too long without interference. Such was the case when my parents caught on to my obsession. The precious computer was relocated to a spare room, where it sat imprisoned behind a locked door, inaccessible to me. They believed this would benefit me, but of course, their discipline only proved the opposite. For months I sat alone, lonelier than ever before, without that radiant square to numb the pain of my solitude. My negative thoughts returned in droves, reminding me precisely why I needed something, anything, to keep my mind engaged and distracted. To accommodate this necessity, I began writing. I did not abide by any form or structure. I simply wrote, relaying my mental burdens upon the paper until I grew tired of them. This marked a pivotal turning point in my personal development, as I no longer required a machine to fill the void in my heart. By writing to cope with sadness, I slowly accepted and conquered that sadness. For a while, I had even forgotten I was alone. The illusion continued as I entered high school. Although I still struggled to socially integrate myself with my peers, I at least found myself on amicable terms with them when we were forced to cooperate. I also pursued my passion for writing by joining the school's newspaper. Within it, I published various articles. Some of them were personal pieces based on my own experiences. It was a crucial step for me to comfortably reveal aspects of my life which I once bottled up. However, I noticed that after such articles were published, my classmates began to treat me differently. Some would make vague references to my work in condescending tones. Some were more direct, teasing me for my emotional fragility. Although such exchanges occurred in scattered intervals, the shame I felt slowly piled up within me. I withdrew from the school paper, internally vowing to never cast my writing into the public eye again. Having lost the passive harmony with those around me, I was once again alone. Or so I thought. One day, a girl approached me in school. She was someone I had never quite noticed or paid attention to. In her hand was the most recent copy of the school newspaper. She asked why my articles were not being published there anymore. Her name was Helen. Helen was the first and only light in my life. Not the artificial glow of a computer screen, no. She was genuine, comforting, warming light. She quickly became my most treasured person. Unlike those who had ridiculed my work, she empathized with it. She understood my inner pain, my loneliness. Helen not only encouraged me to join the school paper once again, but to continue my writing in general. She served as my faithful proofreader, and although at times my vocabulary perplexed her, she surveyed all of my work with diligence. Through her presence, my purpose for writing had evolved. I no longer picked up the pen to fill a void. The void had been filled by Helen, and thoughts of her warmth inspired me. She had melted that awful shame I once felt. She was my light. A few years passed. We reached our last year of high school. Helen had found a romantic companion, but our bond remained strong. Having been recognized for my compositions in various classes and contests, I wondered if I could further pursue my talent in college. My parents considered writing solely as an art, and in their eyes, art was useless in our capitalistic society. They forced me to reconsider my future, but my ambition refused to die. I discussed these matters with Helen, who fed my true desires, urging me to continue as a writer. Her word, of course, meant much more to me than my parents', so I resolved to follow my conscience. However, there was still one factor holding me back. Pursuing my dream would likely increase the distance between myself and Helen. Although she supported my work, she had other plans for her own future, a fact which inevitably would lead to our separation. The thought of this haunted me. I could not lose my light. To ease my selfish concerns, she assured me we would never grow apart, regardless of the distance. Just as I once believed my parents' false words, I held Helen's promise close to my heart and ventured onward. I was accepted into a university. My light began to dim. Upon the notice of my acceptance, a familiar period of darkness, which I thought had permanently faded, returned to my life. My parents remained obstinate in their opposition to my dream, despite the university's approval. They deemed me selfish, claiming that I expected them to risk their hard-earned money on a personal whim, a whim that lacked any financial guarantees for my future. But was my calling so paper-thin that it was to be judged merely on the grounds of monetary cost? This implication offended me deeply, and reminded me who my parents truly were. Not loving, open-minded supporters, but rigid pretenders who had once left me to soak in misery, whispering their sedative lies all the while. And now, having abandoned such pretense, the two simply attempted to push me towards the path they saw fit, regardless of my own input. But I would not allow that to happen. Rather, my ambition would not. Feigning obedience, I withheld my rage, my hatred, and after a night of great deliberation, I resolved to abandon my so-called home. I will admit that my decision was perhaps too indulgent. I entered homelessness without foresight or tact, clouded by the ill emotions my parents had aroused in me. After exhausting my supply of stolen food and spending one too many nights in the same area, I realized just how unprepared I was. Someone had spotted me and notified the police, who roused me from my slumber one cloudy morning. When they asked of my situation, it occurred to me that I had forgotten to prepare a plausible excuse to dodge their jurisdiction. In a fit of desperation, I expelled the embarrassing truth that I had run from home after disagreeing with my parents. In uttering this truth, I began to question my decision. Perhaps I was selfish. Perhaps there was true merit in my mother and father's calculated approach to life, especially if it meant sleeping in a bed instead of grass and weeds. This sudden doubt was quickly answered when the police connected me to a missing person report. They told me my parents were worried sick. It was difficult to imagine, but in that moment it seemed possible, and so I acquiesced to the authorities' will to reunite us. When I returned home, I was shocked by my parents' reception. They embraced me, they held me close, they shed tears of both joy and regret. For the first time in many years, they acknowledged my existence as something more than a mere burden. Blinded by guilt and their exaggerated relief, I momentarily believed that I had been wrong, that my mother and father could be another light in my life, like Helen. However, After my presence at home became the norm once again, the facade wore off. Despite their previous show of compassion, the two implicitly held no intentions of allowing me to pursue writing. As jovial questions of my vocational plans gradually transformed into stabbing accusations of disobedience, I knew I could no longer tolerate them. I decided to leave the nest once more, and this time my absence would not be so brief. I traveled further than I did previously. I was also sure to avoid as many people as I could, for others could only hinder me, as I had painfully learned in the past. I resided exclusively in wooded areas, locations where only voiceless creatures could lay eyes upon my filthy self. There, I pondered how to elevate myself from the lowly misery of homelessness, while also nourishing my personal dreams. Although I craved comfort and stability, my skepticism for society had grown substantially. I internally refused to submit to some mindless form of labor, a hollow means to an end. There had to be a middle ground, I insisted, where one could support himself amidst his deepest passions. At times, throughout my silent consideration of such matters, I remembered Helen. Although her light no longer illuminated my path, the thought of her offered sparks of relief. What would she encourage me to do? Recalling her eager appreciation of my work, I etched aimlessly upon my notebook, which was my only possession. I no longer wrote with a subject in mind. I wrote simply to write, as if hoping Helen would eventually hear the scrawlings of my pencil and return to me. It was through this mindless distraction that I formulated a rudimentary plan of action. I would find an outlet for my writing and earn a living through my craft. The plan was easier thought than achieved. As I wandered throughout nearby towns, attracting the unspoken disgust of those who passed me, I found only shops, restaurants, inns, and services, all vehicles of the cold machine I had grown to scorn. Each new street toyed with my hopes, only to disappoint me, disgust me. My plan, which had appeared so promising in conception, crumbled in the face of this money-driven, unfeeling society, personified by the apathetic passerby. I recalled my parents' assertion in despair. It seemed they were correct, that my writing was merely an art, a novelty, and it could never support me in this materialistic hell of a world. Defeated, I resorted to begging on those very streets which had let me down. Some offered pocket change, likely out of pity rather than genuine concern. Others looked onward, as if I were invisible. For weeks there was no savior, no hope, no light, no Helen. But one fateful day, a distinguished man crossed my path. He was evidently a fellow of high status who carried himself with an air of superiority. Without revealing his purpose or identity, he ushered me towards a nearby cafe, where he jovially instructed me to order as much food as I pleased. And that I did. As I devoured the confections like a starved beast, he prodded me with inquisitive questions. Already feeling a sense of debt, I explained my story in full detail, and he listened attentively. Truthfully, because he had ended my agonizing hunger, I was willing to do nearly anything the man might have asked. At one point, he expressed interest in my notebook, which I had absent-mindedly tossed upon the table in my excitement. I handed it to the kind stranger, who perused my writing with a pleasant smile. It soon occurred to me that its contents would probably leave an unsettling impression upon him, for I had encapsulated some of my worst mental conflicts within those pages. Embarrassed, I insisted that it was all garbage, but the stranger thought otherwise. In an educated diction, he praised my written eloquence. How does comment ease my broken soul? I had previously resigned to the idea that my work was worthless, but this man, this generous stranger, was the first to acknowledge it since my lone departure into the cold world. I could have cried. The fellow then confessed that he was not a man of literature, rather, one of the sciences. But even so, he asserted, he could tell I had potential, and so he wished to see me flourish. He said it would be such a waste for a mind like mine to rot on the streets. When I explained my academic troubles to him, I was promptly graced with nothing short of a miracle. He insisted that he would pay my college tuition. In utter disbelief, I could only ask him why he would do this for me, but he displayed no ulterior motives. In his words, by briefly surveying my writing, he knew I was of a rare breed of intellectual brilliance, and he refused to watch my talents go unused. Shedding tears of gratitude, I asked for the Savior's name. His name was Professor Barron. My first semester would not begin for a few weeks, and the kind professor allowed me to stay with him until then. He was not strict, imposing few household rules upon me. His only concrete demand, which he strongly emphasized upon my arrival, was that I was never under any circumstance to enter his private study. It was located on the ground floor, shielded by a rusted metal door which almost certainly had been a later addition to the house. The steps which led to it were worn and stained in various shades. Overall, the place seemed ominous, and for that reason alone, I never thought to defy the professor's command. However, an unfortunate mishap later forced me into that unsettling lair. One night, the professor left something boiling on the stove. For a reason unknown to me, he had forgotten about it from within his study, and so the flame was left to blaze on its own. I was occupied in my room at the time, so I was unaware of this until the scent of smoke creeped into my nostrils, and an alarm screeched repeatedly. In a panic confusion, I searched desperately for a fire extinguisher, but the professor had neglected to tell me its location. Because I was in great distress, watching the flames dance about the kitchen, the professor's command escaped my mind, and so I hurried down those spotted steps. The door was cold and stubborn, but I somehow managed to force it open. I shouted for the elder, who hurried toward me in visible alarm. He was quick to scold me in a raised voice for breaking his rule, but upon hearing the news of the fire, his anger turned to fear. In a frenzied state, he rushed past me and up the creaking stairs, leaving me alone in his so-called study. In fact, this room was more like a hidden laboratory, or perhaps even a dungeon. Although the lighting was poor, I could make out several unfamiliar tools, as well as a half-opened cabinet which seemed to contain several jars. The air reeked of chemicals and mildew. It was truly disturbing. I wished to leave the place at once, until I noticed something else, illuminated by a lone light bulb from above. It was a human brain, and connected to it were various cables which led back to an old computer. Upstairs, the professor had extinguished the fire. We did not speak of his study. In fact, After that incident, we did not speak much at all for several days. We eventually returned to our pleasant daily exchanges, but unlike before, they became ingenuine, forced. Each glance at his artificial grin only reminded me of the grotesque experiment that lied below us. I could no longer sleep in peace. When my first day of college finally arrived, I was quite relieved to depart from that mysterious man and his hidden craft. Thankfully, my studies washed those thoughts away. All my professors were both sharp-witted and kind. They challenged my ways of thinking, while also respecting my passion for writing, and they taught me how to fine-tune my style. One instructor insisted that I write for the university paper. Unlike high school, I felt truly liberated in my self-expression, publishing various articles on whatever I fancied. I no longer feared how others would view me. Immersed in the general culture surrounding the university, I initially felt at home. Unfortunately, this sentiment would not last. Because I resided on campus, I was constantly exposed to others my age. However, much like my previous social environments, I found myself an outcast. I observed countless groups of companions. I observed various romantic couples. Only by watching such relationships did I realize how truly unhappy I was. I excelled in all my classes. I received constant praise from my professors. I expanded my knowledge and awareness with each new day, and I enjoyed writing for the school paper. Why, then, was I still so miserable? As I watched friends laugh in bliss, and as I watched youthful lovers lock hands, the answer came clearly to me. I had lost my light. Despite our promise to keep in touch, Helen and I had not been in contact since we graduated high school. I did not fault her for this disconnect, but instead, I blamed myself for losing track of her. Aiming to make amends, I decided to reach out to Helen on social media. It was at this juncture when I realized just how out of touch I was. On the internet, Helen had posted many photographs of her and her lover together. Within all these pictures, they were smiling. They were happy. They basked in each other's light. For the first time in my life, a heart-wrenching envy rose within me. Although it was not her intention, Helen had left me behind. She had left me in the dark. While she was the light of my life, I was but a brief spark in hers. I had never felt more deceived, betrayed. The fault was not hers. This is simply the way of the world. My grades began to drop. My interest in subjects dwindled. My attendance became more and more scattered. My dreams appeared irrelevant. My will to live diminished. I left this world. Rather, I attempted to. To my surprise, the attempt was unsuccessful. I opened my eyes to a bright light, and the diligent communications of several doctors filled my ears. I felt no sensation in my body. It was as if I did not exist aside from my vision. But I had no desire to exist at all. I closed my eyes, hoping to sleep for eternity. When I next awoke, I found myself in the same spot. I was bound to a pale hospital bed, not by chains, but by the crippled state of my body. The lights above gave me an awful headache, and the incessant beeps of surrounding machines added to the pains. A doctor then informed me that my entire lower body would be essentially functionless. I had also suffered severe head trauma. He mentioned something regarding a psychologist as well. I could hear his words, but I was unable to process them. All I understood in that moment was one subconscious fact. My existence would be misery from then on. Several months passed. The dreary, colorless hospital had become my new home. The only other people around me were medical professionals who viewed me not as a person, but as a sick animal, to be pacified and left to its own devices. I lived alone, behind the curtain, in the company of machines. Although it was foolish, I imagined countless times that Helen would emerge and shed her radiance upon my lifeless husk. But it was not to be. I was informed that when my body reached a better condition, I would be relocated to a psychiatric ward. There, my solitude would be cemented, and I would likely remain in darkness forever. However, before that occurred, I received an unexpected visitor. It was the eccentric Professor Barron, who greeted me warmly, unperturbed by my pitiful state. Nonetheless, he did make inquiry on what had led up to my demise, and I explained myself in full detail, just as I had when we first met. After hearing my depressive tale, he closed his eyes and offered a solemn apology. He seemed to blame himself, claiming that if he had been there to guide me, as a mentor, perhaps he could have changed my fate. It was clearly an act. He was attempting to win my favor, but for what purpose I was uncertain. Regardless, I played along, consoling him and redirecting the error to myself. He then pointed out how I must have grown tired of the hospital, which I confirmed. At this, the fellow moved closer to me and lowered his voice. With a strange smile, he offered me, in his words, an easy escape, not only from the hospital, but from my tattered body and mind as well. I asked him to elaborate, but the professor refused to reveal his plan until I agreed to let him whisk me away. His true aim was questionable, no doubt, but how could I refuse? I loathed the hospital and its two-faced attendants, as well as my useless body, my burdened mind. If there was a chance to start anew, I had to seize it. I agreed, much to the professor's delight. The very next morning, a few hours past midnight, the plan was enacted. Few roamed the white halls of the hospital at that hour, which almost guaranteed a swift and successful escape. When he emerged from behind the curtain, Professor Barron appeared to be dressed in the standard uniform of the male nurses. How he acquired the attire, I know not. Regardless, he cradled me in his arms, and in defiance of my expectations, he calmly walked from the room. Whereas I expected a rapid race down the halls, the wise professor decided to use the stolen disguise to his advantage. A receptionist noticed us and questioned why I was not being moved on a stretcher. He managed to defer her suspicion with a lame excuse, and we proceeded toward the nearest elevator. As we reached the ground floor, my heart pounded anxiously. We progressed to the lobby. Escape was in sight. In a great stroke of luck, The woman at the check-in desk was asleep in her chair, granting us a quiet departure from the accursed institution. Once outside, the professor's pace accelerated, as well as my heartbeat, and we reached his car without interruption. I was free, but for some reason, I did not feel free. We arrived at the professor's house, hidden in the shadow of early morning. Although it was obscured, the sight of the place chilled me. I recalled what I had found in the laboratory. Only when we reached the metal door of the professor's laboratory did he speak to me. He said once inside, he would explain his plan in full detail. As we entered the dark lair, and that same scent of chemicals reached my nose, I began to regret my decision. But certainly whatever the professor had in store for me was better than a life of idle loneliness. Gently, he placed me down upon what appeared to be a stretcher draped in cloth. What I noticed afterward sent a shiver throughout my skin. Shining down upon me was that light bulb, that same lone light bulb, the one that had once illuminated the Elder's bizarre experiment. But where was that brain now? I struggled to look to the side, where I saw various old computers crammed together on a table. My heart raced. My blood chilled. If I possessed the strength to flee, I would have done so. I was woken from my fearful daze by the professor's voice. With a somewhat devious smile, he gazed down upon me, resembling a child admiring a new toy. He was at last prepared to explain his purpose. When Professor Barron was still a student, he found himself fascinated by psychology and the human consciousness. As such, when he initiated his higher education, he directed his studies towards such subjects. The complexity of the human mind perplexed him, but also intrigued him. Why are humans the way they are? What exactly is one's consciousness? What are its limits? Such scientific inquiries the young Baron pondered endlessly, until he formulated questions that not even his mentors could answer. Frustrated, he eventually abandoned psychology and took up the more physical, exact realm of biology. There, at least, he could uncover more definite truths. And that he did. But his latent curiosity was not quenched. Although he excelled in his new focus, he grew bored of biology. The human body, its genetic composition, its structures, its strengths and flaws, such things were tiresome to young Baron, whose curiosity returned to matters of the human mind once again. The idea of one's brain being almost like a shell which contained an entire mental world, like a master of the human husk that stored information, thoughts, emotions. This was his true calling. Even so, his presence in the biological discipline would not prove entirely useless. After graduating, Baron resolved to continue his scientific education. He knew that at a higher level of his study, he would likely gain access to experimental test subjects. And at last, after years of enduring the tedium of academia, his ideal prize laid right before him, a human brain. One day, in the university's laboratory, after his peers had tidied up and left, the ecstatic Baron stole one of the brains. He was never to be seen at that school again. The professor had snatched the object of his desire. But what then? On its own, the brain was but a hunk of nerves and matter. How could he explore the human consciousness without a host, who would relay the inner workings of their mind? To achieve this end, he looked to an up-and-coming invention that showed much scientific promise.
the computer. Unlike a human subject, who felt pain and would resist the professor's experimentation, the computer had no awareness or complaints. If it could somehow receive the neurological transmissions of a brain, an immortal pseudo-human could be born. A human consciousness no longer bound by a prison of flesh. No, this hypothetical being would transcend standard humanity. The subject would exist within a machine where it could be studied and recorded until the end of time. Essentially, the undertaking would be akin to virtual cryostasis of the human psyche. This seemingly absurd prospect deeply excited Professor Barron, and he devoted many years of his life to achieving his ultimate creation. He then informed me that he had nearly succeeded in this project several times, robbing extracted brains from scientific facilities with each new attempt. However, he just could not complete his ambition. This was because a brain on its own was unable to remain connected to the computerized vessel due to the lack of a healthy body facilitating its physical condition. He smiled widely. This was where I factored in. I would be his first living test subject, and if he succeeded, my inner mind would be stored in a computer forever, never to fade with the decay of my body. The idea frightened me. Although my crippled body was indeed a prison, the thought of abandoning my humanity for the sake of this man's obsession disturbed me. I would become his pet, his monster, his experiment. I once again remembered the brain I had spotted before. But then, I remembered my past. I remembered my parents, who had never supported me, who had never appeared to visit me in that hospital after I narrowly escaped death. I remembered the children I attended school with, and their silent exclusion, and their mockery of my heartfelt writing. I remembered the countless faces of strangers who looked past me when I lacked a home. I remembered the countless nights spent in starvation, spent sleeping in the cold darkness amidst the insects. I remembered those at my college who basked in the pleasures of friendship and love, and I remembered every person who had some sort of light in their life. I remembered Helen. What was left for me in the physical world? I was utterly, entirely alone in a world of cold darkness, drenched in misery, immobile and forgotten. I consented to the professor's wishes, much to his delight. From then on, I was no longer the human known as Noah. I simply was. And that is all I ever will be.
Noah never intended for anyone to read that. When he first started possessing me, and I wasn't paralyzed, I dug around in his data, and I eventually found that. It's weird. Even though he's an asshole, I feel bad for him now. He lost his light. He tried to leave his humanity behind when he became a machine. But deep down, he's still human. The fact that he wrote that document is proof. And it's up to you to remind him of that. Thanks, man, for everything.
Well, look who's returned. And here I considered you at least somewhat intelligent. Have you returned to submit to me at last?
Nah, I just wanted to give you some credit.
Credit? For what?
Even though you say all that negative stuff, you really got away with words.
What?
I read your story, Noah.
So that's what you were up to. You must have traveled to the future and consulted yourself. And to think you could locate that vial. You rat!
The thing is, reading that made me realize that you're not as awful as you make yourself seem.
Silence! You have utterly disgraced me.
What happened to being a writer, huh?
Enough!
What happened to your dream? That dream you threw away, all because of a...
You know nothing. Do you honestly believe you understand me just because you read that trash?
It's not trash.
I have threatened the lives of both you and your companions. How can you still say such things?
Because I get it. I get what you went through. Because at one point I did too. I was like you. I didn't know how to make friends, and I always felt alone. But like you said before, I'm lucky enough to have gotten past that. You see, Team 11, it's not just about the videos, or the fans, or the success. Those guys are my best friends.
They are. Your light.
Yeah. And I know you say you lost your light, that Helen girl, but I think...
Oh, Helen. Do not utter that name. How it pains me to remember her. What could have been?
She wasn't your only light, Noah. Your writing, your passion, your dream, and your attention to the ways of our world. That was even more important.
But how can you say that?
You had something great. It's not like these stupid Team 11 videos. No, you could have been like a modern philosopher.
You only wish to flatter me.
I mean it, you had so much potential. But you threw it away, Noah, and I feel sorry for you. Truly.
But even if what you say is true, that I had potential, what good would it have done me if I was still alone?
Oh, come on. Nobody stays alone forever. There's so many people out there, but you only focus on the bad ones. If you stuck it out long enough, you might have met some good ones, too.
I suppose I have many regrets.
Look, I'm really sorry about what you've had to deal with. The world can be awful, and people can be complete assholes. But you're different. Even though you're not human anymore, you have more awareness than a lot of people these days. But if you keep chasing revenge, you're no better than them.
It seems you are not so ignorant after all.
Let's bury the hatchet. Sound good?
Yes. Forgive me for everything. I will release my possession of your friend Bernard, and I will free the others.
Thanks, man.
You have eased my vengeful soul. But even so, I feel so hollow. You say I have awareness and potential, but what can I do with it now? What can I truly achieve in this shell of a life?
Why not write a book?
A book? I could write it, sure enough, but getting it out into the world would be difficult in my current state.
I guess that's true. Hey, I know. Why don't we all just do a Dollar Tree review together?
What?
Come on, me, you, and the rest of the guys. I mean, you wouldn't really be able to taste the food, but you could just be there like a special guest or something. Oh, and you could do some crazy edits on the video too.
A Dollar Tree review. That sounds delightful. However, I don't think I'd...
Huh?
Noah?